Hi, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about an introduction to sales metrics. I'm sure you've probably heard the term sales KPI or key performance indicator, or perhaps the term sales metrics. When you hear these terms, does a picture spring into your mind of charts, graphs, pie charts, lines, squigglies? I mean, it just drives you crazy. Do you even have any idea what these terms mean? I really wanted to start the written section of this post with a picture of a beautiful dashboard, but honestly, I was afraid it would make potential readers run off in a panic. Let's talk about this. What is a KPI, or a key performance indicator? It's simply an item that is being measured, such as, how much have I sold so far this year? Now see, that doesn't sound very scary, does it? Let's talk about the term metric. What is a metric? The metric is simply an answer that's returned when you look at the KPI. For the above example, a metric would be, I've sold $68,000 so far this year. So the metric is $68,000. Again, it's not very scary. So, with the above example, a sales KPI is just an area that needs to be measured related to sales, and the associated answer that results from asking that question about a particular area is the metric. When salespeople get scared, I don't know about you, but when I started feeling queasy was when I looked at an elaborate dashboard filled with various charts and graphs showing pages of data. It sure looked pretty, but I actually had no idea what I was looking at, much less how I would create it or why I would even want to. You need to understand that nearly every CRM will create these dashboards for you, and they're really nothing to be feared. Today's dashboards are simply a graphical way of showing us the metric for the associated KPI. From the earlier example, our metric, $68,000 in sales, is the resulting answer from the question, how much have I sold this year? The KPI. And it's shown in a graphical form, perhaps with a comparison of, say, what our sales should be at this point based on our stated, or most likely mandated, sales goal for the year. Now, using a graphical view, it becomes really easy and quick to see where you are compared to your goal. Of course, 1 month of sales data would be just as easily understood looking at a spreadsheet. But once the spreadsheet has hundreds of rows and columns with years of data, it becomes extremely difficult to determine what the data is saying. Whereas a graphic can take years of data and pinpoint exactly where you are at the moment, making it simple to see. Okay, now the question comes up, what am I going to measure? Since you see how simple a graphic can be to review your progress, the question becomes, what should I measure and why? Well, honestly, that depends on where you feel you need improvements to be made. Below and following, I'll list the typical and critical KPI areas that I feel should be measured. Sales compared to goals. Pretty simple. Profit compared to goal. This is especially important if you're paid on commission. Revenue by product line. Revenue by market segment. Time spent selling versus other activities. The number of new opportunities added in a given time frame. The time of progression of a new opportunity through the sales funnel. What's the win rate of opportunities? What's the average revenue per sale? What's the average margin per sale? What's the total value of your pipeline? And what's the length of your sales cycle? Now, all of these sound great, but we need to go just a step further where I feel like KPIs make a tremendous impact. Let's talk about your lead generation. You should be tracking the rate that new opportunities are added to the pipeline, the quality of these new opportunities, your lead follow-up rate, your lead to close ratio, and your percentage of leads by source, where did the lead come from? Did it come from a web inquiry? Did it come from a referral? Was it an existing customer? And so on and so forth, because leads can come from various places. Now, I can only imagine the look on your face while you're thinking, Ken, how am I going to set up and track all of these? And more importantly, why should I? Well, I know you've heard the adage from Peter Drucker. What gets measured gets improved. And conversely, what doesn't get measured gets forgotten. Well, I know you're saying, but I track sales. Well, most sales pros track their sales by a day, a week, a month, a quarter, or whatever. But you're not most sales pros. You are here because you're special and you're looking to be the most efficient you, both at work and in your personal life. Simply tracking sales doesn't tell you how you got there and where your time is best spent. Let me set a situation and then pose a few questions. You decide, by whatever method, that company XYZ would be a good target account. Now, you don't have a contact at company XYZ. Here's some questions. How long does it take from the very first phone call to work company XYZ to placing an order? How many phone calls? How many in-person meetings? How many follow-ups and pieces of content? How many emails do you send? How many experts do you bring to the site for assistance? In your case, let's say it takes 6 months. In some industries, it could be 6 days. In others, it could be 6 years. Regardless of the number, would you be more effective and have created more margin, free time, for yourself if you could cut those times in half? Well, of course you would. But how can you do that without information? You likely could improve, but it would be a lot easier if you had the right data. I'm sure you're thinking, what can metrics do for me? What if you tracked just one KPI? How did you decide that company XYZ would be a good target? I feel sure you didn't just Google companies in a particular city and point at a random company out of the results and pick your target. Most likely, there was an indicator. Perhaps they were browsing your website. Perhaps an existing client told you that company XYZ might be a great fit for your product or service. Maybe they responded to an email campaign. Perhaps you found them on an old installation list. Maybe, while at the dog park, your dog sniffed the butt of another dog, and that dog happened to be owned by the CEO of company XYZ. Hey, I know it's not likely, but you never know. Regardless of which of the above pointed you toward company XYZ, they're all different lead sources. And if you're tracking lead sources, if that's one of your KPIs, you would come to find which of the above was most likely to be the best opportunity to target a company that needs you. You might find that your dog has a real knack for picking your target accounts. You never know. Okay, back to seriousness. Let's imagine that tracking lead sources, you come to discover that a referral from an existing client is 50% more likely than any other lead source in leading you to a new, successful business relationship. Now, which lead source will you work on the hardest from here on out? Of course, the referrals. We only looked at one metric that could increase your efficiency. How much would it benefit you if all the metrics above that we talked about earlier were being tracked? If you still feel a little queasy on this topic, I suggest you determine one KPI that could lead you to huge gains. Then implement this one KPI. Next quarter, you can add one more. You can't do all of this overnight. It has to be a progression. I certainly hope this introduction to KPI and metrics leads you to understand why this is such a critical area. And remember that many CRMs will create this information for you. You just have to be diligent in setting up the system and knowing what to track. A simple dashboard could be the start at creating a lot more value for the right client, increasing your commissions, and gaining you tons of margin in your life. I'd love it if you would leave me a comment on what you feel like would be your most important KPI, or jump over to the Facebook group and join in the conversation at facebook.com/salesexpedition. And be sure to join us next week when we begin looking into your sales process. Concluding, don't miss out. Please jump over and subscribe to the blog at salesexpedition.com/signup. Thanks for being here today. I can't wait to get with you again next week and continue our learning. And thank you so much for being here. Have a fantastic day.